3, Night of the Creeps, The Fog, Creepshow, Bruiser,
Ninth Configuration,
Escape from New York,
Lethal Weapon,
2 Evil Lives. He's the official detective of Beyond Fest. He's the chief of Beyond Fest. He's the baddest man that's ever been on screen. Let's all give a big round of applause in that for the Tom Atkins!
love you, Tom! The best.
There's only one Tom Atkins, and how we get the pleasure of seeing Tom Atkins on the big screen. Did you always want to be an actor? You came from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How did this begin?
I did not want to always be an actor. I wanted to, I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I got out of high school, I went to the Navy. When I got out of the Navy, I thought, I'm going to go to college because the Navy officers lived way better than I did. I was an enlisted man. So I went to Duquesne University and majored in journalism, and I had a job at the paper, and I knew I could work for the paper. But I got involved with, I was chasing a girl. And she was involved with the Red Maskers, an extracurricular theater group. And so I got pissed because I said, I'm not getting my fair share of your time. You're always over at the theater and rehearsal or performing, and we don't see enough of each other. And she said, come on over and do a play, and we'll see each other more often. So I did, and I played Croc the Cop in The Time of Your Life, my first role, my first cop of many cops. And I saw more and more of the theater group and less of her, and then I went to New York, became an actor, and worked out.
Thank God for her, best casting director ever. She's the best casting director ever.
She is, yeah. Yeah. You could say that. She married a guy out of the Navy and moved to San Francisco and is a nurse and has 2 kids, and I guess she's still alive. I don't know.
Now, your first film was, or one of your first films was with Frank Sinatra, wasn't it?
Let me tell you the story about that. I was brand new. It was 1967 in New York. I got a call from my agent. Go to the Sherry Netherlands Hotel, a very Tony, pricey hotel up on Park Avenue, I think on the east side of New York. And I said, okay, what's this? She said, it's for the detective, and you have the sides, and you read with Gordon Douglas, the director. You meet him and read with him. I said, okay, great. So I went to the hotel, went down the hall that I was supposed to, and there's an assistant, and he said, are you Tom Atkins? I said, yeah. I said, where's everybody else? Well, right in here, come in. Took me into the room, and there's Gordon Douglas, and we chatted for a little bit, and then Gordon Douglas said, you ready? I said, yeah, am I going to read with you? And he said, just a minute. And he knocked on the adjoining door, and in walked Frank Sinatra. And Gordon said, you're going to read with Frank. I said, oh, okay. So we did the scene. It was a scene between me and Frank. And in the movie, I'm a rookie cop, and I shoot a guy in a car and set off a race riot in New York. So I'm nervous because he's the chief of detectives, and he could fire me right there, standing there. So we did the scene that went really good, and Frank said, good job, kid. Walked out the door, he came in, and Gordon said, well, I can tell you got the role, it's your role. And he said, I only have one question. Can you be that nervous when we shoot the scene as you were today? And I said, Hell yeah. Easy. That's Frank Sinatra, for Christ's sake. Yeah. That's how I got that part, and it was my first movie film, and it was terrific up in New York.
Now, since we showed some of these movies, two that were associated with John Carpenter, you worked with him as a director on The Fog, and he was the producer on Halloween 3. What was it like working with John Carpenter?
John is a really good old friend. Although we don't see each other much, he stays in his house and plays video games and watches NBA basketball games. And he's famous for that. He's kind of reclusive. He's not a real social guy. But he is a really wonderful director and a good man, and I love him dearly. And we had a great time working together on The Fog and Escape from New York. And yeah, and he produced Halloween 3, him and Deborah Hill, although he did not direct it, but he had a little bit of the music in there is his, and some is Alan Howarth's, I think. But yeah, he was great to work with. He gives you a nice framework to work in to get to where he wants you to go, and he's easy, nice, good guy.
Now, speaking of Halloween 3, how does it feel that after all these years, because when it came out it wasn't well received because everyone wanted Michael Myers, I'm going to just be honest, say fuck Michael Myers because we didn't need him in Halloween 3. How does it feel vindicated all those years later that people now love Halloween 3?
People love Halloween 3. Well, I don't think people love Halloween 3 more than the original Halloween.
I do.
You do? Well, I know there are some, and maybe many, but I love the first Halloween. But they didn't, when they asked me to do Halloween 3, there was no Michael Myers in it, and it never occurred to me that anybody would be pissed off about it. And as you say, fuck them. It's a wonderful standalone movie all by itself, and it didn't need Michael Myers. And it was John's intention to do a kind of an anthology of Halloween stories, do a different Halloween movie every year. Completely different, not with Jamie, not with Michael Myers, just different stories. And the money people at Universal who backed Halloween then did Halloween 2 about 10 days after Halloween 1 came out, I think. But John already had Halloween 3 in the shoot, and they had green-lighted it and said, okay, you could do this, but don't ever make any more without Michael Myers. And John said, well, would like to call it, John and Tommy said they wanted to call it Season of the Witch. And the money guys said, no, you have to put the franchise Halloween 3, Season of the Witch could be the subtitle of it. So there were a lot of people who were disappointed that Michael Myers wasn't in it, and I don't care. None of us did.
Night of the Creeps didn't get the biggest reception to come out, and it's a huge hit. You talk about doing that with Fred Decker and what that means.
Night of the Creeps is my favorite.
Yeah!
I love Night of the Creeps. And I just had dinner with Fred Decker last night over at Musso Frank's, their 100th anniversary of that old restaurant, where Once Upon a Time in Hollywood shot a terrific scene. And many movies have shot scenes over there. It's a great old place. And Fred and I we laugh every time we get together about Night of the Creeps. And it didn't release well, but it sure has built over the years into a phenom, I think.
Woo!
Love and affection from all of you fans and fans everywhere. There are 6 million of you, and thank God for you. I would have no life without you guys. I appreciate it. Thank
Now, since you're with the Mussos, how did you get your martinis, with gin or vodka?
bruiser. Ooh. Is that what you said?
No, I said martinis at all Musso's. How did you get them, with gin or vodka?
Did you get a martini at Musso's? Or did you have a Miller?
I don't know what I'm not hearing you.
Oh, say, when you went to Musso's last night with Fred, how'd you get your martini?
Fred had a dirty martini. Thanks to you guys, it gave me a gift, a nice bottle of Paso Robles Red from California, and that's what I had. Fred had some of the red, but then he jumped on the martini. Yeah, I might have one Tuesday. I'm having dinner there again Tuesday.
Now, speaking of Night of the Creeps, you got to share a scene with one of the great character actors all time, Dick Miller. What was?
We were talking about Dick Miller last night. I went to a screening of a film I made 2 years ago. It just came out on Blu-ray and DVD called Encounter, a little sci-fi film that we shot down in Augusta with Luke Hemsworth and Anna Hutchinson and a bunch of other people. I went to a screening in Boston a year ago for Encounter. And when I came out of the theater at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night or something, there were 3 guys there with Dick Miller sweatshirts on. With Dick Miller and his face, that wonderful face. And he said, "Tom, we're from Dick Miller's fan club." I said, "I can see that." What is that? Why are you? He died today. I said, "No." And he had died that day. And I just felt so bad. He was a wonderful, wonderful actor. He was in everybody's movies. He played the armory keeper in our film, Night of the Creeps, and I had to go. Me and Spanky, Jason Lively, had to get down there. I wanted to get a flamethrower. I figured it was a good way to kill the creeps, the zombies and stuff. So I loved it. I got there and he's behind a cage, a chain link fence kind of thing, and I said, I can't remember his character name, but I said, I need what I really need is a flamethrower. Oh, geez, Ray, we got a flamethrower, but I need the requisition. Well, I don't have a requisition, Jimmy. I need the fucking flamethrower. So he kept trying to get me to give him a requisition. Then I put my shotgun, and he brought it back. And he was a wonderful guy to work with. And I'm so sorry he's gone. He was a wonderful guy, terrific guy. Yeah.
I'd like to talk about another wonderful guy you had the pleasure of working with many times, the great George Romero. If you could talk about
George, I've known George. I knew him for, I think, since before. Well, I have a long history with George. Not all working. He was brand new, right out of Carnegie Tech, I think it was still called then. Now it's Carnegie Mellon, a university in Pittsburgh. And he was shooting commercials. And a buddy of mine worked for the ad agency that George was shooting a commercial for. It was a beer commercial. And I was brand new in New York, pretty new. And Paul Rayleigh, my old fraternity brother, said, Tom, so you're coming down to Pittsburgh for the Duquesne thing, right? Our fraternity gathering. And I said, yeah, I am. He said, you have a chance. You could do a commercial. You could do this part. And the guy said, sure, that he would be happy to have you. He knows you. His name is George Romero. It's for Iron City Beer. Iron City Beer is the worst beer in Christendom. It's just awful. He said, yeah, but it'll be a nice little payday. It's a local ad, so it won't be, it's not big, but you can make $1. And I said, okay, yeah, I can. Oh, wait. When is it shooting? He said, well, it's going to shoot the same day that the fraternity thing is. And I said, well, then, I'm going to the fraternity thing and drinking. Not Iron City, but I'm not going to shoot a commercial for Iron City either. So I didn't work for George when I had a chance because I didn't really know him. We hadn't done anything yet much. And then that came out, Night of the Living Dead, right away. And oh man, we were off. So I remember talking with him out in California, out here for Creepshow. And he said, have you seen the script? I said, it's wonderful. Yeah, you're going to shoot it like that? Like a comic book, right? And he said, yeah. Bright colors, pizzazz, things, words, and yeah, it's going to be terrific. And is there anything in there you'd like to do? I said, I would love to play that guy Jordy who gets eaten by the green marsh shit, taken over by grass and stuff. And he said, well, you can't, because Stephen King wrote it and he's going to play Jordy. I said, okay. Would you do me a favor and play the dad in the wraparound? In the very beginning, you don't want to read your kid reading that crap. And in the end, he voodoos you to death. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. And we did. And it was Stephen King's actual son, Joe, who was 9 years old at the time, who played my son, who I had to smack in the scene because I didn't want him reading that shit. And he just gave me smart lip about it. So I hit him, as I am wont to do. And Stephen hovered in the room the entire time we shot that scene, saying, Tom, you're not really going to hit him, are you? You're not really going to hurt him, are you? It's my, he's only 9. I said, Stephen, it's in the script that I hit him. You wrote it. I'm hitting him. I said, come on, man, I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to brush his face. He'll barely know it. And they'll put in a sound effect after and make it sound really good, like a crack. And so it went okay. But he never left until George said, that's a wrap on this scene, let's move on. Yeah, he stayed in the room the entire time. George was wonderful. I worked on Bruiser with him and Two Evil Eyes and Night of the Creeps, and I think that's it. Yeah, just 3. Here's a piece of trivia for you. Adrian Barbeau is one of my oldest, dearest friends in the business. Period. Oldest, dearest friends. We did 4 films together, and we have never been on screen together one time in any of those films. There's something you could play a game with somebody. Trivial Pursuit.
Or there's something we can correct if there's any filmmakers in the audience.
Yeah. What?
There's something we can correct if there's any filmmakers in the audience.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about another.
So George, honest to God, was like working with a big teddy bear. And he was so gentle and made such violent, odd horror movies and the king of zombies. But hugging him and getting a hug from him, it was like a big bear. And it was terrible at the end when he was dying, and we all knew it, and he knew it, and you give him a hug, and it was like hugging a bag of bones, and it was so sad, really sad. I miss him, and I loved him. He was a good man.
There was another film I wanted to bring up. You ended up in Lethal Weapon. How'd you end up in Lethal Weapon?
Lethal Weapon was probably the biggest movie I ever made. I mean, it was more successful than anything. And I think everybody in the world saw it 8 times. And I only had 2 scenes in it. First one in the bank with Danny and telling him I wanted him to kill them all because they killed my daughter. And Mel Gibson was on the fringe of it. And the second one was at the wake for my daughter in my house above Pacific Palisades. Maybe, I think it's where, well, I'm not sure, where they come up from the cliff. I could be wrong. But the helicopter came up from the cliff, and me and Danny were talking, and I was drinking my eggnog, and Gary Busey shot me from the helicopter, through my back, out my stomach, in my eggnog, out the eggnog, and then the eggnog poured out, and then I fell down. And everybody says, too bad you couldn't be in Halloween 2, or Lethal Weapon 2 or 3. I said, no, I'm dead in 1. So, I'll tell you a little. Gary Busey and I were down at the Western Coast over here. I was getting fitted for 2 Armani suits, gray pinstripe and a dark blue pinstripe, because I was a banker, a cocaine banker. But Gary was getting fitted with crap, just stuff. And he gets on the phone. He gets a call while we're there. We're both in the same room, fitting area. He gets a call from Donner, the director. And, Gary, are you here? Good. So, he couldn't help but overhear him because it got real loud. And he says things like, I'm not going to be a fucking albino. Why would I be an albino? I don't have this rolling. It's not a fucking albino. The movie isn't about an albino. I'm not going to be an albino. What? What? Yeah? Okay. I guess I'm going to be a fucking albino. I guess Donner said, you are going to be an albino or I'm going to hire somebody else to do the role. And he said, well, okay, I'll do it. So he was. I never understood the need for it either. No offense to any albinos, please. I'm sorry. It's just that Gary was so outraged about playing one. Isn't that a silly story?
That's not a silly story. That's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
It's true.
Now,
But if you know Gary, you know it's true.
Now, there's another movie I want to ask you out. It's a movie that's also starred Bruce Campbell, Rain Landon, and was directed by Bill Lustig. It's Maniac Cop. How'd you end up in Maniac Cop?
Well, it says the things that happen around the movie that are more fun for me, that make it interesting. And Maniac Cop was okay. It was another sad story that Zadar, the guy who played the Maniac Cop, he died. He was a wreck. But not while we made it. He was still pretty good, in good shape and that. But Bruce Campbell was in that movie. And I was in that movie. I was the star of the first one. And Bruce and I see each other occasionally at horror conventions. And we were always laughing. I just saw him in Chicago at Flashback Weekend, and I said, so did you talk about Bill Lustig, director of Maniac Cop, in your Q&A? And he said, no, it didn't come up. And I didn't talk to him. If I had, I'd still be talking about it. And I said, yeah, what was it with him? I'm the star of the first Maniac Cop, and I'm dead in a half hour out the window on top of a cab. And the Maniac Cop throws me out there. And he said, yeah. And I'm the star of the second one. And I go up to a newsstand to buy a magazine, and I get stabbed to death for no reason, for no real reason. What the hell's that about? Why does Lustig do that? He gets his stars murdered off in the first half hour. How is the rest of the movie supposed to be interesting? What do you have to root for? That's me and Maniac Cop and Phil Lustig. Yeah. I think he's still living in a canyon up here somewhere. Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you about another one that you're going to have I don't know if anyone knows it, but you were supposed to be on a little film called The Ninth Configuration for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How'd that end up?
Oh. The Ninth Configuration. I have always thought, I love this guy's face up there in the back row under the light. He's just grinning and grinning. The Ninth Configuration was a movie by William Peter Blatty. And he wrote it, and he directed it, and he produced it. And I don't know. It's too long to talk too long about it, but I've always thought that a movie about the making of the Ninth Configuration would have been a much better movie than the Ninth Configuration was. He took 22 guys to Budapest, Hungary in 1978 when it was still behind the Iron Curtain. And two of the guys, Moses Gunn and Neville Brand, two old stars, they thought, well, shit, I'm going. My part, all of our parts would have worked 2 weeks maybe in the States, but 2 months we're over there, 2.5 months. And they said, we can live up high on the hog on the per diem. We're getting a ton of foreigns, which was what their money was called, to live on. We can eat high, and the salary goes right in the bank. I'm going to go over to Yugoslavia, open up an account, put all the per diem in there, and then they found out that the per diem, the foreigners, were worth absolutely nothing outside of Hungary. 1 foot over the border, and it's paper. So that put their plans of getting rich out the window. There are wonderful stories of a big fight in the 6th floor disco of the Hilton Hotel. Oh my God! I won't tell you. I just can't tell you. I think I'm going to write a book, but I can't tell you. But I will tell you who was involved. Jason Miller, God rest his soul. Joe Spinell, God rest his soul. And the Zairian ambassador. And we roared out of that place with the crystal chandeliers being chipped by thrown beer bottles and whiskey bottles, and oh man. And we, Scott, oh God, who also died? Scott Wilson, yeah, rest his soul. He and I were at the bar, not in direct involvement in the fracas, and he said, we better get the hell out of here. So we went down to our rooms, and Jason and Joe Spinell were right down to Blatty's room and said, I think there's trouble brewing. There's somebody going to be knocking on your door any minute, because there were, I swear to God, it was there were KGB guys everywhere. Everybody followed you wherever you went. Everybody cut in on your phone calls. But God, we lost the first star of the movie. Was going through a terrible divorce. Terrible. I can't remember his name, and I always have trouble remember his name. He's a Brit, and he played the colonel in the movie, and he was. We're in the first week of shooting, And he was going through a terrible divorce in England, and he depended on phone calls with his wife and family and lawyer, barrister, and they kept getting cut off, and for no reason, and they would just disappear. You would lose the call, and it wouldn't come back. One too many happened, and he threw everything that was possible to fit through the windows of his room, out the window, 6 floors down to the street and they deported him. And I swear, and they deported him, and Blatty said, "My God, he's a star of my movie. I got to start over now." And he did. And Stacy Keach came in to play the role, and Scott bumped up from what he was to something, and we all moved around, and it ended up getting shot. But it was one of the most outrageous life experiences I've ever had. 9th configuration.
You were in the greatest Los Angeles television show of all time, The Rockford Files. So I have to ask you a little about how you got in that and working with James Garner and just your experience on that show.
The Rockford Files, Jimmy Garner was one of the best actors I've ever met in my life. He was just a dear, wonderful, wonderful guy. And a wonderful actor. I only did 6 Rockford Files, and then we made 3 Rockford File movies in the 90s. And then it all ended, and he's gone now. So many people are gone. I don't like it. I'm glad I'm still here. I'm okay. But I'm missing all these guys. And I'm doing a movie right now called Collected over in Atlanta. And it's a third of that series. And the driver captain came up to me the first day of the shoot, and he pulled out his phone. He said, "See this?" I said, "Oh, it's Jimmy's car. That little Camaro or whatever the hell it was that he wrote." I said, "Is that his car? Garner's?" He said, "It's the one they used in the movie." He said, "Yeah, I have it. And it's over here somewhere. It's all restored." And he used to love to drive that car. He never let any stunt drivers do any of that. He loved driving that car. He was a really good actor. One time we were making him, I'm getting too long-winded here, but we were making a movie of the week in the 90s, and it was probably the last one because he said Universal doesn't seem to give a shit about us anymore, and nobody wants to hire a 72-year-old detective. And I said, "I would, Jimmy, in a minute." And he said, "Yeah, I know, but we're going to wrap it up." And I had my wife and my son, who was about 9 then, out there. And all of a sudden, I hear over this speaker, we're getting ready to do another take of a scene that we're shooting, me and him. It's a deuce, just the 2 of us, over mine, over his, close-ups and stuff. And I hear over this sound thing, my little boy's voice saying, "Rockford Files, episode 6. What? Oh. Scene 23, take 4. Sound ready." And Jim's got this big grin, and he said, "Yeah, I told him he could do that. It's fun, huh?" Just a great guy, wonderful. I miss him and his brother Jack. They were terrific. Here's the last thing about Garner. During that time, we were all sitting, Dennis and me and Jimmy Luisi, we were all there and smoking cigars, waiting for something to set up during lunch, I guess. And we're talking about old times, life, family stuff. And Garner said, "You know, you always knew you were in trouble when your mother would holler every name you had to get you in the house. My mom would throw open that screen door in Oklahoma and say, 'Jimmy James Scott, Baumgartner, get your ass in here. And I always pushed my brother, Jack, you go first, you go first. He was a great guy, loved him.
Before we bring Tom out for the signing, we're going to open up for some audience questions here. So who's got one? Right there.
Hey, talk about working with Daniel Hurley and Halloween 3.
Daniel Hurley, I just saw Halloween 3 2 nights ago in Pittsburgh at a fundraising event. It was, and I hadn't seen it in years and years. He was wonderful. Classic Irish UK actor. Yeah. Terrific. I didn't really have a whole lot to do with him. Was kind of on the edges of most of the scenes. I loved that he decided to look up at me throwing all those chips into the firestorm of and doing that little sarcastic clap that he did. He was great. He was a good guy. Yeah. Oh yeah, bless your heart, man. Thanks. Yeah, Trick is the third of the series of collector movies, I guess. I haven't seen the first two, and I play the father of Arkin, who is fighting the evil and trying to destroy it. And I have to tell you, and I don't care if I'm giving anything away, I lived through the whole movie. And so does Arkin. Somebody doesn't.
Got anyone in the back out there? Right over there.
I'm a big fan of Nancy Marie.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You asked about Trick. Jesus. God damn, gold star on my ass. I'm shooting The Collected, what I just said, over in Atlanta. But Trick is a wonderful film that I made in March up in Newburgh, New York, with Patrick Lussier, who directed Drive Angry and My Bloody Valentine 3D. It's my third with Patrick, and I was thrilled to do it. And it's already getting released. It's going to premiere at Screenfest right around the corner on Wednesday, the 9th of October, in a couple of days. So I'm going to stay on for that and then find my way back to Atlanta to finish Collected.
Awesome.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. Thanks.
Right there.
I'm a big fan of Dennis Farina, and actually, I really love the movie Striking Distance. The classic. Wondering if you can tell me about working with him and working, you're a Pittsburgh guy.
Originally, or he has a sister living in Dennis Farina, he asked about, who's also passed away. Jeez, crackers, yeah. Dennis Farina, I see you have a Tom Atkins Rules shirt on. Woo! You're great. Oh yeah, with the mask up with that. Oh man. So Dennis Farina and I are in Pittsburgh shooting, my hometown, shooting The Striking Distance with Bruce Willis and Sarah Jessica Parker. And Bruce brings Sarah Jessica to, he's a city cop, Pittsburgh cop, and a river cop. And so is she. They run a boat on the river, cops. And I'm a cop, and his dad was a cop. His dad was murdered beginning of the movie. And Dennis Farina is a cop. We're all cops in this movie. And I gotta say, I look great in dress blues in that movie. We had a big like a policeman's ball down at the Point in Pittsburgh, where the three rivers come together, the Monongahela, Allegheny, to form the Ohio. And it's a striking physical setting. Really beautiful, and we had this big party down there. And my first line to Bruce when he walks into the party, he comes over to give me a hug because it was my brother that was murdered, his dad. And I don't say, I'm really sorry. I don't say, I'm so sad for your dad and losing my brother. I say, don't fuck her. Because he brings Sarah Jessica hard. That's my line. Thank you, Rowdy Harrington, for that. Yeah. And Dennis Farina took great pleasure. He loved to play golf. He would get all these old scrap balls, or maybe new balls, I don't know, and just beat the shit out of them out into the middle of the river. While we were shooting that scene, the Mississippi Queen, one of the big river boats that go down to New Orleans, was parked over on the other side of the river. He kept seeing if he could hit it, but it's a wide river, and he never got more than halfway across. And he was really good. Oh, and Tom what? Tom what? Tom Sizemore is one of the, maybe the son of a cop who is...
Dennis Farina's son.
Yeah. And he, in that scene, in that fireman scene, he gets loaded, really loaded. And, he's supposed to be really loaded and give this speech on top of a table. Well, it was his brilliant idea to get loaded. He was loaded. And it was dangerous because we were trying to tie in the fireworks with dawn and the party, and the people of Mount Washington were really pissed because we were keeping them awake all night. But every time he would try to get up on the table, he had to step up onto a chair, onto a table. Dennis and I were on either side of him to kind of help him get there. And Dennis and I looked at each other the second time, because he screwed up the words in the middle and had to get down and start over. The second time, and gave him an extra little shove. And he went off the other side. And then we did it again. And then Rowdy said, no, we got to get this. We got to get this show. Don't do it again. So, yeah, we were a little devilish. But Dennis was terrific. Yeah.
I just wanted to tell you that my mom, who's turning 72 in December, she's your biggest fan in Spain. Yeah, we saw the movie that when it came out, the Night of the Creeps, and she keeps telling me, pretty.
Did you all hear that?
No.
Is your dad still alive? I think that is really sweet. Please say hi to your mom for me. No, I'm happily married back in Pittsburgh, but please give her a hug and say hi for me.
All right, we have time.
Sure.
Right there. In the middle. Going at you.
In Halloween 3, can you please tell us that you really threw your mask on the camera first take?
Of course. No. I was still partially bound, and it was 30 feet up in the air in the corner of a factory wall. And I went like that, and it went right on your lap, right there. And then, but then, and Tommy knew, we all knew that wasn't going to happen. He said, just give it the best toss you can, and we'll make it work. And so I did, and it went nowhere. And then Tom took the mask and just flipped it, and it went right on the camera. And Tom slowly turned to Dean Cundy, cinematographer, and said, I hope you were real rolling. And Dean Cundy said, then he missed 20 times and then climbed a big A-frame ladder and went like that. And still missed 3 times until it went on. But it looks like I went like that and went right on there. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Thanks for asking about that.
Right there.
Tom, you've worked with so many of like the great icons of horror and created some of the greatest performances in some of the greatest horror movies. I'm just wondering, what like inspired your love and passion for horror?
They were jobs. They were just jobs, man. And the passion and love for them came along with the working in them. But I've thought about that, and it's not so much a passion for horror, but I have a passion for fantasy and odd. The first film I can remember, and Fred Decker and I had the great pleasure of watching this film together up in Rochester at Eastman House, where they restore movies and old nitrate films, and we were going there for a Night of the Creeps and a Monster Squad kind of thing, and the guy who ran Eastman House said, "Are there any films from your past, for your life, that you would like to see again, that you might not have seen for a long time?" And I said, without even batting it, I said, yeah, Stairway to Heaven, or It's a Matter of Life and Death. An old 1947 film with David Niven and Kim Hunter. And I can remember my mom taking me to see that movie when I was 7 or 9 or somewhere in there. And I loved that movie. And it went from black and white to color and back. It had stop time in it, where David Niven was supposed to have died in their bomber crash coming back from the war in Germany and, all shut up. But everybody died except him, and his crew was sent back down from heaven by St. Peter to collect him, to get him back up there where he should be. But he fell in love with Kim Hunter, and then he wanted a lawyer to represent him and not have to go back to heaven. And it's a wonderful, wonderful, magical film. And I think ever since that, I've always loved the original, The Thing. That was one of my favorite films. And I loved all the Boris Karloff films from the 40s and that, and Bela Lugosi. The Bride of Frankenstein is one of my all-time favorites. And yeah, I guess I did develop a love for horror all through it without really thinking about it, because I also loved Lash LaRue, and cowboys and everything. Yeah, I love movies.
It's interesting. George Romero's favorite film was Powell and Pressburger, The Red Shoes. George Romero loved the red shoes of Powell and Pressburger, just like, yeah.
Yeah, and here's my favorite part of that is when we saw Stairway to Heaven, it was Martin Scorsese's personal print that he gave permission that we could watch it. It's up there. And also, Fred wanted Once Upon a Time in the West, Martin Scorsese's personal print. And they were waiting to get permission on that one, and his office didn't call in time, and they said, oh, hell with it, we'll run it. And so we got to see that too. And yeah, he owns a lot of he owns a copy of The Red Shoes. Yeah, it's great.
You're in a Tom Atkins rule shirt? Is that true? You can ask a question.
Tom, you do pretty well in Halloween 3 and in The Fog with the ladies. Any advice?
Grow them mustache.